and now is going to be going down to Florida. Frank joins us here on the Tuesday edition.
Look at this. This is a carousel of hotshot guests.
I just need to fire up the DJ Pinder here. Just for our faithful viewers and listeners, this was my first extended run getting the Pinder experience. And I want to let you all know that it is exactly what you thought it might be. Exactly.
Yeah, there's no exaggeration. What you hear on this show, you guys really, it's exactly what happens.
It's not boring.
It's high kicks.
My commitment to
it's dancing.
It's never boring.
It's a rave. It's a constant rave when you're around Pinder. Because I get the same remarks. I will show stuff on social media or whatever. And people, well, he really is like that. Hey, I kind of thought maybe it was a bit. There's no bit. There is no bit whatsoever.
I turned to Frank on the Friday, and it was quite late, maybe around 2 or something. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? He's like, this is my place. I can't sleep till everyone leaves. Like, right, okay. And a little word to everyone, and 5-10 minutes, we'd cleared out of there.
Yeah. I was really hoping to find that video. I don't know where I saw it. I know I saw it, but the jubilation for Frank after the wheel showed up at
Friday
about 1:30 a.m. on Friday.
Frank.
Look,
as the camera pans to a tower of cheese pizza with Mr. Seravalli.
You just saw our team photo and you saw the boiler on this guy. So there, that I was not an MVP of any sorts on the ice, but off the ice, I can order 5 pizzas at 1:05 in the morning. And
look at this.
Yeah.
Give him a passport. That's a Caesar, folks. With a huge piece of beef jerky on it. Oh,
that was a quality Caesar.
Yeah.
It was a $20 Caesar.
Probably worth it.
But
depends on the exchange rate, I guess.
I guess for you, be almost like giving it to you.
Yeah,
so now you were Sunday. Saturday we play 3 games in Jasper at the Pond Hockey. Sunday we're supposed to play. It's bitterly cold. Everyone leaves. Walk me through your Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, where we talk to you now.
It's been an adventure. I'll tell you that. And by the way, I feel like, I furthered my off-ice value by mentioning to Pinder on Saturday night. It was like, well, it is supposed to be -25 tomorrow. We're supposed to play each other in the championship game. What do we just call this a gentleman's truce and get absolutely ripped tonight? And Pinder did not require any sale on that thought whatsoever. There is no compete in that guy on the ice, but off the ice, he's like, oh, that is a blinking green light.
Yeah. There was.
Are you really trying to convince me? Like, obviously, I'm in.
There's not a lot of arm twisting to get out of those Sunday games, but you had a brutal flight and the whole thing to get back to Philly.
Yeah, it was a little bit of an adventure. I mean, I tried my best to avoid Air Canada, so I went through Denver. Ended up with a 10-hour and 54-minute delay. What was supposed to be a lunchtime flight had suddenly turned into, after many hours in the Denver airport, including a nice little meal at United's expense at the Elway's Steakhouse, turned into a red eye. And so red eye get to my door at 5 of 6 this morning. And here I am talking to you guys because there's a lot happening. We had the number 1 player on our trade targets board traded yesterday. So there's a lot to think about and talk about.
Let's get right to it. Bo Horvat leaves Vancouver, goes to the New York Islanders. I'll have you kind of describe the package because I think a lot of people were maybe underwhelmed. Maybe they're wrong to be underwhelmed. And I guess my overarching question is we're a month out. Could there not have been more value? Are they smart to deal him now? Just your thoughts on the timing and the return for Vancouver.
Yeah, I think the timing is really interesting because I had the same question. And I think a big motivating factor for the Canucks here was the idea of really having a clean break during this bye week and all-star break. And you think about the near constant drama that's surrounded this team since training camp, whether it was, Bruce Boudreau and his underwear flying on a flagpole outside of the arena for the bulk of the season, the complaints against the team off the ice, both in family court with Francesco Aquilini, their owner, and in the Human Rights Tribunal with one of their employees in Rachel Doherty, to the JT Miller drama and why did you sign this guy first? Bo Horvat has been waiting for a while. What's going to happen there? it's been one thing at the Ilya Mikheyev injury last year, playing on a torn ACL. It's been one thing after the other with this soap opera. And now to get a clean break, I think there's real value in that. But I think the question that I would ask is, would you have prolonged that drama for another 3 to 4 weeks to ensure a better return? Here's the bottom line. The Canucks and their GM and Patrick Allvin has made his bones in the scouting world. So clearly getting Atu Ratu, he's someone that, as a second round pick, they clearly are a big believer in. He's 20 years old, and so a nice future piece. They get that first round pick that's top 12 protected this year. Next year, if the pick doesn't convert, next year it slides and it's unprotected. So that certainly is something to look forward to from a Canucks perspective. They're going to be watching the Islanders closely. But when I talk to talent evaluators around the league, they size this up and say this is a limited upside deal for the Canucks. They say, when you look at Beauvillier and Ratu, they believe their ceiling is as third-line players. Clearly, the Canucks don't necessarily see it that way, but if it is 2 third-line players and a first-round pick, even in a good draft year, is that enough for Bo Horvat, who they also retain 25% on, to get for your captain who's had a 31-goal magical season? I kind of understand it more from the Islanders' perspective. You may not agree with it and think that the Islanders are a good team, but they're in a spot where they've got the goalie. They struggle to score goals, so they add one of the premier goal scorers this season, and he can clearly help on their power play. Obviously, an extension is coming. I was speaking to people with knowledge of Lou Lamoriello's perspective on the deal. This would not have happened if they did not have a strong sense that an extension would be possible and likely. So expect that in the coming hours and or days. And now the Islanders are thinking, hey, we're going to roll the dice here and see if we can get in the playoffs and make our team stronger.
Okay, so I mean, I kind of don't get it for both teams. Like, to your point on Vancouver, you probably could get a little more if you waited, and we don't really know how good this package is until we see where that pick is. If it's 12 next year or 13 this year, it could be number 1 next year. We don't know those things, so it's tough to evaluate that. That'll take time. Islanders, to me, are older than they want to be and not in the playoff position they want to be. If they extend him to the type of money it's going to take to sign Bo Horvat coming off this deal, this feels like a team that's already old, that's committing a lot of money to a guy into his mid-30s again. And they already have centers like Barzal, Nelson, Pajot, Cizikas. Like, they didn't need a center, did they?
No, I kind of thought they needed a winger to play with Barzal that could just put the puck in the net. Barzal, one of the premier playmakers in the game, has 1 assist in his last 12. The Islanders have, I think, scored more than 2 goals in a game one time in their last 11. Like, their offense has really struggled. And to your point, an older team that is not just older, but also has a ton of term committed. A lot of their guys aren't going anywhere. So if you plug in Bo Horvat, my expectation is going to be somewhere in the 8x8 neighborhood. That, you're essentially not just doubling down from your summer with very few moves, but now tripling down on this roster. And I think their big bet is not just on Horvat, but it's actually on Ilya Sorokin and net, thinking if we're able to get in, we've got the goalie that can carry us there and do the damage necessary in the playoffs. But the Islanders, it's been a full sell, mortgage the future. That's essentially where they're at, because they haven't picked in the first round since 2019. They're obviously not going to be picking there most likely this year. So they're in a spot where they're just absolutely banking on getting in and doing some damage, not just this year, but the next few. Clearly, Lou Lamoriello believes that this team is better than what it has shown to this point.
Well, obviously, the sale is on in Vancouver. That will continue. Who are the other names on your board? Who else do you expect to go in? Is Beauvillier maybe in that group? Is there a chance that he is jettisoned out before the 3rd as well?
Unlikely, because I think the Islanders had been trying to move Beauvillier for a while and had not been able to do so. And so that's where the cap complication actually gets a little bit more interesting for me from Vancouver's perspective. They take on Beauvillier and they just signed Kuzmenko. That's another $10 million committed to next year's cap for more wingers. So what does that do? It puts the focus squarely on Brock Besser and Connor Garland, I believe in the next 32 days leading up to the trade deadline, that they're in a spot where I'd imagine talks will be picking up in a significant way on Brock Besser and Connor Garland. And so elsewhere around the league, will we see any more trades before the actual All-Star break itself? My guess is probably not, but I do have a sneaking suspicion, keep your eye on this, that the St. Louis Blues are up to something. I think their GM and Doug Armstrong is getting pretty antsy. May not be Ryan O'Reilly or Vladimir Tarasenko out of the chute, but I know they've been in some discussions about Ivan Barbashev, Nico Mikkola, as well as Noel Achari. So keep your eye on the St. Louis Blues because they have been working hard behind the scenes to try and shake up their core.
And so to be clear, that's the Blues selling ahead of the deadline, not trying to bolster their lineup like the Islanders did in a similar spot.
That's exactly right. It's so interesting to see one team that actually probably has a better core and future when you consider Thomas and Kyrou, et cetera, certainly much younger. But maybe the one piece missing in that equation, Pinder, is the netminder.
Yeah, fair.
Blues lost their 5th straight last night.
Blew a 2-0 lead early in the
against
third.
Winnipeg.
Jeez.
So
Josh
Horvat is
Morrissey.
off the board. Who missed out on Bo Horvat? Which of the teams? I know there was a lot of talk about Boston, but as you see it, who really could have used Bo Horvat in the legitimate push this year?
Yeah, I really think it was Boston. I think there were other teams in on Horvat that are non-playoff teams. Like I think Columbus probably would have offered a similar package back. Maybe someone like Jack Roslovic would have been in the deal for Vancouver. But in this case, I just think of the idea of having this team that's been so almost perfect this year in Boston, although they've lost 3 straight, are in a spot where they can really make magic happen. This is a team with last dance vibes. And you can see the torch being passed from Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci right to Bo Horvat. You re-sign David Pasternak. That's getting a lot closer. My guess is that deal starts with a 12. And you're in a spot where, you can, have a chance to win now and increase your chances by adding someone like Horvat. And then you keep that championship window open next season with Horvat, Pasternak, Lindholm on the back end, McAvoy. Olmark's been great in net. Like you can see the Bruins remaining really good for a long time, even after Bergeron and Krejci decide to hang up their skates. So that to me was the one team that, maybe they didn't necessarily have the assets. That's the one thing about this Canucks perspective is that they wanted current NHL ready players that they can plug into their lineup, even though Ratu is going to Abbotsford. Beauvillier was someone that they want to plug in because they want to retool, not rebuild. And so maybe they kind of get the best of both worlds as well with that first round pick.
Where's Carolina at now that Max Pacioretty is out again? It felt like that was going to be that one deadline ad that they didn't need to worry about because there he was, and now he's out for the rest of the season. Long term, we can worry about that later, but the Hurricanes, tops in the Metro, where are they sitting right now?
Yeah, I believe, by the way, Pacioretty had surgery on that Achilles last week in Finland, which is interesting. Where are they at? They are in a spot where I thought Horvat would have been a fit there. They're in desperate need of a second-line center. Stastny has filled in admirably there. Jesperi Kotkaniemi, despite the 8-year deal at $30+ million, has not panned out to this point. He is not a championship caliber 2C. And so that's where I thought Horvat could have slotted in. They clearly had discussions, but they're in a spot where, again, the Canucks want roster players. Who are you plucking from that team? And the Canucks aren't giving up their very top prospects to make something like this happen. So they're not giving up Seth Jarvis or Netchash or any of these other guys that Vancouver certainly would have been interested in. So maybe not so much to play with heading back in return to Vancouver. And that is where I think their focus is going to remain on that second line center. I think they've been, vaguely linked to Timo Meier. I don't necessarily see it. And today we have our deadline countdown series continuing on DailyFaceoff.com, profiling Patrick Kane today. And so Kane, everyone's been linking, just a side note here, everyone's been linking Kane to the Rangers. The Rangers' number one target is Timo Meier. So not Patrick Kane at this point. I'm going to be fascinated to see how that plays out with Patrick Kane.
What do the Avs do at center? They lost Kadri, and I don't know that you're going to hang a banner if it's Compher or Newhook or Rodriguez as a second-line center. I sort of thought they should have been in the Bo Horvat market. They also have all three of their next 3 first-rounders. I thought they'd be more depleted than that.
Yeah, they do have draft capital, and I would imagine that the Colorado Avalanche are going to be at least pursuing a conversation with Jonathan Toews when the time is right, because he just makes perfect sense. It's not just the championship pedigree, but I think if you're Toews and the ability or opportunity to join a team like that now has found itself again as they begin to get healthy, that was always the danger if you were one of those wild card teams trying to get in, is the Avs could clearly rip off 12 straight wins and no one would blink. Now with Toews, maybe that a chance to go there gives you a shot in the arm that rejuvenates your play a little bit, because to this point in the season, he started off pretty hot scoring wise, but has really fallen off in a big way. You see his body language, the frustration. It hasn't looked good. I think he's ready to go, but I think he wants to go to a place where he has an authentic chance to win. And I think Colorado, no doubt, is that. The key is, how interested are the Avs? But I think on paper, if you think that you're getting a guy in Jonathan Toews who was, anywhere close to the 2015 version, well, then you've got yourself a home run.
I guess just a couple of things. Are the Kraken, I would not have guessed we'd be here at the All-Star break. Now, I don't know what Vegas does, but there's the Kraken. Tops in the Pacific, 63 points. You said it a while ago. They're a playoff team. Get ready. I didn't think they'd be leading this division by any strength of the imagination. Do you still preach patience if you're Ron Francis? We're a young team, we're building. Or do you look at it, we didn't build our team traditionally, or in the traditional sense of an expansion team. We brought in some older players. We have a roster. Why wouldn't we add now? You talk about draft capital. I would think they've got it out the yinger. Are they a legit threat to add here at the deadline?
I think they're a legit threat to add. I just don't see them being a threat in the rental market. I don't know that it makes sense to be throwing those assets around to get a 12-week run with someone. You're probably going to want a player with term, or someone that you believe you can re-sign in the short order. So I would think that's their focus. Ron Francis is generally pretty conservative in that stance. And I think the other part to look at is, would you make a move for a goalie? I mean, that's the real thing to me, I think, for a team that I like the Kraken, and I think their story has been incredible this year. I think they've also been incredibly lucky. If you take a look at their shooting percentages, they've got Jared McCann shooting 24% from the field. A lot of it is not sustainable. It's been a magical year. They've been able to score like no one's business. But I think they really still need help in net. Martin Jones has steadied them, but he's not a long-term answer and or a playoff answer. So between the Kraken and the Kings, could they be perusing the goalie market? That's where my attention would be if I was Ron Francis, would be to get that position right. Get it right, not just for now, but get it right for the future. And whatever you need to do with Grubauer and the other mistakes that you've made in your expansion draft process, well, then you need to sort those out.
Last one from me. Flames are 50 games in. I know on DailyFaceoff.com you've trotted out a few names that potentially could be fits. Not to say that you're necessarily hearing that, but who are some players that could be on the move that might fit a role in Calgary. So two things there. Names that you think could be potentially on Brad Treliving's radar. And secondly, 50 games and still nothing as far as clarity, it seems, on Oliver Kylington. Do you expect the Flames will get any kind of clarity? How long does that play out? And do you have anything, I guess, on the Kylington situation as we're now heading into the month of February?
During my hours in the Denver airport yesterday, I did revisit the Kylington situation, and I was told nothing new, but a decision is forthcoming. I think each day that this lingers on and he's not on a plane back to Calgary from Sweden, that it's less and less likely that Kylington will be rejoining the team, though nothing is official just yet. I expect that's the way that it's heading, and it is January 31st. I told you that the Flames wanted to get an answer by the end of the month, and so I'd expect news on that soon. And again, not looking good. But 50 games in, I think the larger question is, who are the Flames? You know, I look at this team, and as you watch the standings change on a daily basis, I figured the Flames would get it together at some point. It hasn't happened yet. It's been in fits and starts, and I don't know how good this team is. I really don't. And I think the question is, how big of a swing do you want to take if you're Brad Treliving after already taking a bunch in the offseason? You know, you might say that means that you're pot committed and need to go big and do something. From a name perspective, it's pretty simple. You know, the first top objective and priority, as I mentioned, was getting Shillington, getting an answer. You're going to have $2.5 additional million in cap space to play with. You've got some already, so they can use that to their advantage. It's a scoring winger and potentially or preferably with speed. I think the Blues and Flames have had some conversation. I can't put my finger yet whether it's on Tarasenko or whether it's on Barbashev. I think either one of those would be interesting fits, and reminder that Tarasenko has the full no trade and no move, so he will only go anywhere if he okays it. I don't know how he feels about Calgary, but I do think there's something going on there that would make sense to keep an eye on moving forward.
Yeah. Excuse me. And I was under the impression that in the offseason that Calgary was not something he was keen on. Maybe that changes at the deadline when it's only a few months, but yeah, I wouldn't be holding my breath on that.
Barbashev, I think, is really interesting because I don't think it's going to cost a ton, and I'd give him a pretty long run over the rest of this season to see if you can find something. I think the big question with him is his compete. It wavers from game to game. Obviously, that's not something that's going to sit well with Darryl Sutter, but the skill is there. This is a 26 goal scorer or something like that, 60 points last year. Like he's really struggled this year. But there's clearly some talent there in Ivan Barbashev if you can drag the compete out of him. 26 goals, 60 points last year.
Oh, nothing.
I was going to text Alex here. Alex, do we have the video from yesterday? The video of Tyler Yaremchuk getting the puck in the chin.
Here we are. Look at this.
So there are two things to watch here, Frank. There's the puck.
Boiler.
It comes up. It hits Tyler. There is also the you can see there's Frank Seravalli in the Oiler-colored shirt, sweater, white helmet. Really watch the level of concern for Tyler from Frank Seravalli as this plays out. So he's coming in. A lot of the other team kind of come over. Oh, are you all right? Then here comes Frank.
Yeah, I'm good.
Fuck it.
I turned around when he said, "I'm good." And just for the record, the guy that made the pass and all of our bosses right there in the ski goggles, I made it further than him. And considering that
That's true.
needed some AED paddles likely to get through the weekend, I think I deserve some credit for that I made it further than the guy who actually threw the rocket, which Pinder deflected into his face.
Well, he can't be trying that nonsense against us.
Part of the game plan.
Dog shit.
That's right. Frank, safe travels to Florida. Say hi to Rhett if you see him down there.
I'm
he's
going
eating
to the
bisque as we
whale's
speak.
rib. I'm going to find Rhett, and we are going to have a night.
Nice. I look forward to the details. Safe travels, buddy.
guys.
Good to talk to you.
Yep.
Frank Seravalli, NHL Insider.